All right, good evening, everybody. It is 7 p.m., so I would like to go ahead and call to order our January 23rd regular meeting of the West Irondequoit Board of Education. We can all rise. We'll open with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I ask everybody to just please remain standing for a moment after the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As many of you may know, last week the West Irondequoit community lost a member of our family. Steve Crescetti was a coach for multiple sports within the district. He was a West Irondequoit graduate, West Irondequoit resident, had 3 daughters that came through West Irondequoit, and was a very cherished member of our community, of our district, of our athletic program. So before we get into the meeting, we'd like to just take a moment of silence to remember Mr. Crescetti. Thank you. Before we get started, I would just like to say a big thank you to Ms. Lustig, Mr. DeVeronica, Mr. Brennan, Dr. Johnson for all the work that went into preparing for the public hearing that we had before this meeting regarding the veterans tax exemption. You know, it wasn't an easy lift, and appreciate the time and energy involved. All right, we want to start with the land acknowledgement.
The West Irondequoit Central School District acknowledges the indigenous people of this region, and that this school district building sits on the homeland of the Onondaga of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. It is on these lands that we teach, learn, and live. Thank you very much. All right, the first item we have on the agenda is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Borer?
Second.
Second, Mr. Begg. Dr. Johnson, do we have any changes to the agenda?
We have no changes tonight.
Okay. Hearing none, go ahead and vote on the agenda. All of those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried 6-0. Ms. Wall is unable to be with us tonight. Next item we have on the agenda is public comment. I did not see anyone signed in for public comment. We always encourage members of our community to take the opportunity to come in and speak with and share their feedback with the Board of Education. So, and have future meetings. If anyone is interested, please feel free to come and join us. The next item we have on agenda is approval of the minutes. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the minutes of the December 19th, 2024 and the January 9th, 2025 meetings be approved as presented.
May I have a motion, please? Ms. Borneval, a second. Mr. Schopfel. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the agendas on the minutes to approve? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item we have on the agenda is good news. I will turn it over to Dr. Johnson.
Thank you so much, and we'll turn it right over to our amazing student representatives.
Nearly 1,000 holiday trees were donated to Helmer Nature Center for its annual Trees for Trails event on January 18th. This tradition, which started in 1976, is used to fortify the Nature Center's trails to fight erosion. Special thanks to High Falls Tree Service and Irondequoit Lawn and Landscape for donating their equipment, time, and expertise. Margaret Burns, our district's BOCES Board of Education representative, was named this year's Champion Award recipient by the Greater Rochester Parent Leadership Training Institute. She is a former West Irondequoit School Board member. The emerging IHS girls cheerleading squad took first place at the Wayland Cahockton tournament. The Eagles junior varsity also won and modified was runner-up. Varsity and JV also took first place in their division at a competition in Penfield in December. 4 years ago, IHS didn't even have a field varsity squad. Under the direction of music teacher Mr. Falco, 17 members of the IHS Jazz Choir sang at the Monroe County Office Building as part of the county's annual holiday concert series. Out of 12 performances by area schools, our choir was selected to perform last before holiday recess.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Next item we have on the agenda is report by Superintendent Johnson. Dr. Johnson.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sullivan. So, there we go. As has become customary at our second meeting of the month, we're excited to have some students and some family members here joining us tonight. So what we started doing about a year ago is just scanning the district and asking our people, our administrators, and our staff about the happenings in our buildings and athletics and extracurriculars, and then finding ways to lift those students up by having a special recognition with the Board of Education. So tonight, we have our Seneca Superstars. They are our safety patrol with us, and their fabulous principal, right, Ms. Spitz. So if I could just have our president, Mr. Sullivan, and vice president, Ms. Warnerball, come on up. We have some special certificates and some pins to award these student leaders. And having visited all of our buildings many times, I've had the pleasure of witnessing these students over there in action. And I say that, as everybody hopefully knows, we do a lot here around safety and security. It's our first priority, keeping our people safe. And we often talk about what that looks like with our building, or maybe our security cameras and things like that. But in essence, it starts with our people. And we talk about building good relationships and trusting one another and supporting one another. And that's what this is all about. So our Seneca Safety Patrol are some of our leaders in that building, our third graders, right? Mm-hmm. Who were selected. And I'm going to ask Ms. Spitz to talk a little bit about how they're selected. But they're the ones who in the morning, they help to greet the students, and as the students are waiting for their classes to begin, they're there supervising, encouraging, and just making sure that their morning gets off to a good start, right? And that's something that we certainly appreciate, because we all own in that safety and security. We all own that together, and it starts with our students. So Ms. Spitz, how are these students selected for such a responsibility?
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Thank you, Board of Education, for recognizing our Seneca Stars tonight. I know they're very excited to be here. Our students that are selected to be on our safety team really are our role models at Seneca School. They exemplify what it means to be a Seneca Star every day. They make great choices, whether they're just arriving at school, in the classroom, at recess, throughout their day. These are our students that really do exemplify what it means to be a role model and somebody who will help to take care of everybody at Seneca School.
That's great. So with that, I want to call students up one by one. You're going to get a special certificate from the Board of Education, okay, signed by myself and our board president, and a special pin to signify this celebration, okay? And once you come through and shake the hands, I'd love to have you stand up here so that we can get a picture with you and the board and Ms. Spitz afterwards. All right? So let's start with Ethan Bodick. Is Ethan with us tonight? No? Lucas Hertweg. And it's appropriate to give a round of applause. We'll have you stand right up here. Sydney Rainey. Gabe Marshall. Catalina Little. Jennifer Aniza. Abel Johnson. Sienna Clay. Brooklyn Clay. And Kellen Christensen. So with that, I just want to say that on behalf of the Board of Education, I'll read this from the certificate. Thank you all for ensuring that Seneca Elementary School remains a safe and welcoming environment for all, and we appreciate your leadership. One final round of applause. So I have you guys come over here with the board officers and Ms. Spitz. I'll get a nice picture for you of you, and if you're comfortable, I'll give it to Mr. DeVeronica to celebrate on our social media. Is everybody okay with that? And that's okay if you're not? All right, here we go. Yeah, congratulations. So, for the rest of my report tonight, I want to continue our theme for the district this year, which is keep showing up for our students and for our staff, and showing up on full, curious, and inspired. So what you see up here are some examples of how we're doing that in the last couple of weeks. So in the upper left-hand corner, we had the Trees for Trails. So we had a number of students and community members show up, and we had well over 100 trees easily that we ground, and then they became part of the paths over at Helmer Nature Center. So we appreciate High Falls and their donation of time and services, and also Irondequoit Landscape, Lawn and Landscape for their contributions. Just below that, we have the Iroquois snack cart. So you may be tracking this across the district. I believe that every 4-6 school now, we have a student-led coffee cart or snack cart. And that's a significant value add for the buildings, because we all love snacks and coffee, but also because it's an opportunity for our students to learn. They learn people skills, how to interact with others, how to take orders, how to manage money, how to count change, all of those things that are some of those daily functions that then help them to learn and grow. Below that, we have the annual Rotary donation of dictionaries. So again, we just want to thank the Irondequoit Rotary for doing that. And sometimes we say, you know, a dictionary in today's day and age, you know, what does that mean to our students with all the technology? But I would say having a third grader who got one of those this year, it is a prized possession. They come home, they're scouring through it, looking up words. Wanted to talk about the longest word in the dictionary, all these other facts and figures. So it really does make a considerable difference, and it just really sparks that curiosity and love of learning for our students, and is a fabulous resource. In the upper right-hand corner, that is our IHS Activation Club. So if you're unfamiliar with our Activation Club, this is them. They went to NAS recently, and they're associated with our Unified Sports and Unified PE. And they went there kind of as a student summit, and they were working on how to improve unified physical education for our students, building skills, building relationships. And if I'm correct here, I'm not sure what the exact activity is, but some of the activities that the section and state are investigating and adding for the upcoming year is floorball and boys flag football as unified sports. So that's something that we're certainly going to investigate. Down in the right there, there's a seal of civic readiness. We had some presentations by our students here. There's a set of presentations here in midwinter, there's more in the spring. And what they're doing there is they're voluntarily creating these presentations to present to a group of adults and who discuss those, and they're around civic readiness, government, civic duties, all these things, and the students were fabulous. It was a very interactive event, and the students did a fabulous job, so congratulations to everybody that was involved in that. So a few updates just to share with the board since we last met. Had a chance to meet with the 712 Student Advisory Council, so that's a second meeting for the year. For this meeting, we chose to invite not only an open invite to all students, but also requested a representative from our major clubs and activities from the 712 level. And on the agenda for this month was a commitment that I had made with students last year when we went through the consideration of controversial issues related to fundraising. And the commitment I had made through that in conversations with student groups was to make sure that I took the results back to our student leaders of the clubs, held a discussion, talked about the determination, but also, you know, some of how it impacts our students and staff and communities. So we're able to do that as well as just talk about some of their ideas and questions surrounding the district. Also had an opportunity working with Ms. Miga to invite in a representative, a coordinator from Monroe to Orleans BOCES around community schools. So there was a coaster that was created, and it's a few years now. There's a growing number of districts that are now a part of this coaster through BOCES. As you know, the coasters and BOCES allow us to share in services between districts to qualify for state aid back on those services, and this one is around community schools. And what this would really do if we were to pursue this is open up pathways to access some resources and support in creating a community school or schools within our district. And the whole ideal of community schools is really improving the access for our families and facilitating a network through the school where these families can access a higher level of services to support their children and them. So that's something that you know, we're considering. You may hear more about that through the budget planning process, but just wanted to note that. And so that was with our leadership team, so we all have a common understanding of that. Just a reminder that the legislative breakfast is coming up next weekend, followed by the polar plunge, so you can advocate for our schools and then take a nice plunge the day after if you're willing to do that. But I had some questions around our West Irondequoit priorities. It's become customary that we create a sheet of our local priorities backed by some of our facts and figures. So we are working on that and finalizing that. You'll have that sometime early next week with color copies to take with you. Notified this week that we're prepared for a soft launch of the Business View magazine. So it's really cool. There's a number of districts that are highlighted in that. We have a multi-page section dedicated to our schools. It's really sharp. I will send you the link to that. I just want to say thank you to Jeff DiVeronica, who's really our point person on that. But I hope that you're impressed with that and how it really lifts up the work that we're doing here and celebrates that. And then last but not least, there was a public comment at a recent board meeting regarding transportation, consideration of the services and level of services here in the district. After receiving those ideas and that feedback, talked with Mr. Brennan, we wanted to start by providing you some basic information. So you have a memo there in the administrative section of board docs that just gives you just a bird's eye view if we were looking at expanding the services across the 412 buildings to meet some of the requirements that person spoke about. And it just includes the approximately the number of buses we would have to add, the cost per day per bus, and then the anticipated cost for a year of that service, along with how that would impact the levy. So we're also going to work on some other ideas to present back to you. Just, I know that's something that left an impression on you, maybe some questions, and I'll be reaching out to see what other information we can provide you as we move forward with that, and whether to consider that or not, and if so, to what degree. And there's really, as you look at that information, there's going to be two most significant hurdles with that. Obviously, the financial component and the impact on the district, but also access to buses. We're really, it's really up to the to our contractual services whether or not we can fill that. And as you know, it's been a crisis to secure drivers here for the last few years. And if we were to add 18 buses or request that, that would be another significant hurdle we would have to navigate. So, who has a question? Oh, Bri, I'm sorry I didn't see your hand.
Are you talking about like buses for the high school or for others, like?
It could be. So the public comment last meeting was just around consideration for expanded transportation in some way within the district. So.
Do we have transportation to and from school for all others, like schools in our district other than the high school?
So there's different levels that are set by the state, and we provide transportation at those levels. And those are really outlined. If you're interested, I can go through those with you. They're on our website. So we meet those, but the parameters for that, the distance from the school and the requirements for transportation increase as you go from elementary to the high school.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's some of the conversation that the individual wanted to spark as far as reconsideration of that.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank
Yep.
you.
Okay?
Do you want questions on the memo now or not? Or do you-
Well, it's up to you, sure. I mean, I'm presenting it just to give you some facts and figures, and then, again, at some point, talk to you about where we want to take this. We'll talk more at the budget planning workshop.
I can wait till then. But,
Sure.
I mean, that was just maybe some information we could have.
Absolutely. I mean, if it's something we can work on.
Yeah, so, thank you for the memo, it outlines it perfectly.
Thanks to James.
Kind of meets the request that our resident asked about, so the board has some information. I guess my other question would be, and I know this hasn't been done in a long time. You sitting down? What would it look like if the district just wanted to do busing? So we buy buses, we build a bus garage, we bus kids, again, so now we got an overall picture. We meet the state standard now with what we're compliant with state standard of just so you know, it's in the memo, 1.5 miles for 4th through 6th grades. K3 we bus everybody, no matter of the district. 1.5 for 4-6, 2 miles for 7-8, and 3 miles for 9-12. So if you live beyond those numbers, you're offered busing, correct, James?
That's right.
So I guess the question would be, I know Irondequoit has neighborhood schools, it's always been a walking district, but to be fully, and I think for the board to look at this, what does it look like? We know, and I guess a side note, James, I know it's in the budget, but on a sheet, like we spend this much now for what we're compliant for New York State's specifications. If we were to make an adjustment, which we are allowed to do, we have that information, and then what would it look like? I guess the question is, what would it look like if we've never done this, as far as I know. Even when we talked about busing just K3, 15 years, or more than 20 years ago. So.
Yep. That's a pretty big conversation to dive
That's a
into,
big number.
like buying buses, outfitting a fleet, finding a location, securing a building, providing maintenance and repairs on those things. That's a great question.
Well, and
That will take some time.
Yeah, and I don't need it next week. I'm wondering, like, is that an option where we have our intermunicipal agreements? And I don't know, does East Irondequoit have enough capacity where we could share a garage and a lot to park buses? Even though.
We've started those conversations, and for example, last year we leased a bus with our new head bus driver. This year we chose to transition that over to first student. So first student We have a contract with them, right, James, where the head bus driver can jump on a bus during the day if we need it. So we're kind of, and breaking that seal in that way. I would also note an important consideration again, if this is something that we want to have a broader conversation about, we can add it as a discussion item in a future meeting and get more information for you, is that if we provide transportation past those state standards, those extensions are not aidable. So that is an important consideration that I'm sure, John, with your experience.
We've had residents in the past come and ask about our busing policy. James does a great job of explaining it, and the superintendent's office does too. And then I don't think people realize, they're like, why don't we just bus everybody like every other district does?
Yeah.
I don't think they realize it is a huge number.
It is a huge
Even if and then you gotta worry about, we gotta find a bus garage and build one in the land, and then we gotta worry about staffing that whole department and the administration that goes with it. But it's just a number that you say, by the way, this is.
Well, I would add to that the mandate to transition to electric buses, which currently we don't have to pay that much attention to, but if we were talking about outfitting a fleet, we would be talking about electric buses and an electric garage and.
Yeah. No,
And that's
so again,
yeah.
it's just those numbers to.
Because we've talked as a board, talked with you as a board before about potentially purchasing buses and building a small fleet, and maybe contracting for services or maintenance or repairs, but with the looming expectation to purchase electric buses, doesn't seem to be the time to do that, right?
Or it could be exactly the time. I do think it's worth thinking about, as this whole picture is changing, what is the opportunity? Or the risk. It's
Or the risk,
it's a big question.
Yeah,
But I
that was
appreciate opening it
yeah,
kind of more broadly.
So again, Aaron, that doesn't have to be next week. You can talk
Thank
to
you.
leadership.
Appreciate
I need a
that.
rendering.
James appreciates that more than
I would
me.
like a rendering.
Right.
But maybe work with board leadership and how we can spark a discussion of what would transportation maybe, I'll call it 2020 or 2030 transportation in West Rockland. Because
Yeah,
that would
and
take multiple years to
And
get
I
it
think
off the
that's a
ground.
bigger idea to pursue.
Yeah.
It's not really a few months.
Yeah.
It's more at least a year or multi-years and, right, exactly, so,
But just,
okay.
I know they said that and we dipped our toe in it, so.
I think it would also be helpful to know what other districts in the county's what their transportation operation is.
Mhm.
And I've been thinking about this myself. Are we the only district that doesn't have it?
No.
So it would be helpful to know some of those details too,
Yeah.
what other districts are doing.
Most do, right?
Most do. It's a minority that doesn't. I mean, we're one of a small handful that contracts for services, and, there's one district that doesn't have any service, correct?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, it's more of a mixed bag than ever, because of the driver shortage, everybody contracts now.
To some
Everybody-
level.
To some level,
To some
because they
level.
cannot find enough drivers themselves.
yeah.
So everybody has some level of contractual. The ones that are pretty much all contractual are East Rochester, Brighton.
Yep. Any other questions at the board table? And then I'll take Bree's question.
I think you alluded to this, and we'll certainly continue this conversation at the budget workshop, but there are also other related concerns, what the transportation concern implicates, in terms of students having warm clothing, in terms of students having a safe place to be. And so I think the conversation can be broader than can we provide buses, but how do we address those concerns outside of that?
And I think that's and that's what we're going to turn some of our attention to is,
Sure.
are there options? Like this is like the Cadillac option, right?
Right.
But there's that public comment introduced some other ideas as well that we could consider. So that's something that we'll pursue and investigate. So, Bree?
Is it do we have enough bus drivers to even think about this as an opportunity? Is it to the point where this could happen in the future, or like if we do like part-time bus drivers, like do we have enough resources?
So those are the two, like I said, two limiting factors. Number one would be finances, and there'd be, depending on the level of consideration, that would be a financial commitment from the district. And then two is just the resources, like they're limited. So that's a limiting factor, whether we can secure buses themselves and then whether we can fill them with drivers. And because right now we contract, it's really, we're at the mercy of those suppliers and whether they can even offer that as an option. So that's a great question. Yeah, right.
Would we be able to, in getting, sorry, would we be able to get possibly funding from the state in order to bring these buses, or because it's going past the state compliance, it's
right.
not a...
Yeah, when we purchase buses though, those are aidable,
Okay.
right?
Right.
And then I don't remember off the top of my head because it's been a while since I interacted with it. As far as the transportation buildings, can they reduce
The transportation building is eligible for transportation aid.
is it a lower rate or same rate?
Then our building aid rate is lower.
Yeah. So again, not necessarily a conversation that I intended to get into tonight.
Yeah.
It was just in response to the question to acknowledge that there was a reaction from the district and that we're gathering information to support you in what level of consideration you would like to give that. Okay? Yep. And last but not least, bowler plunge. We're over 50 people. Last time I checked, we were trending over $3,000 raised, so a little over a week left, and still taking, people that are willing to do it. Any comments or questions?
Good. Does anybody else have any questions or comment? All right. Next item that we have on the agenda, and somehow I closed my browser, is the report of student representatives.
Hi, this is the high school report. Many IHS students have attended MIS STIA, or Theater Education Association workshop that was held 2 weeks ago. They have learned many things about the careers and colleges for acting, singing, and stage management for their futures. For athletics, notable athletes currently are 9th grader Leo Macaulay and Lucy Hahn. Link Crew has held a study session while seniors have helped freshmen study for their first midterms. Model UN met and our school did very well in Model UN. Our cafeteria seating changed in the high school and we now have new modern furniture. We have mixed reviews on that, but it is a step into renovating a lot of things that I think has been really well received so far. And this concludes the IHS report.
All right. Now the Seneca report. Recently, Mr. DeVeronica, the other student representatives, and I have visited Seneca Elementary School to speak with 6 students from grades K through 3 about their experiences and advice. We're grateful for Principal Spitz for her time and support in facilitating these conversations. Remarkably, only one suggestion was noted, which was regarding the amount of time allotted for eating lunch. This has been a recurring sentiment from every elementary school and middle school we have spoken to thus far. Students overwhelmingly express their enthusiasm for specials, particularly PE and art. In PE, they've been engaging in various activity stations, while in art, each grade is working on creating plaster sculptures featuring pumpkins, trees, and other plants. Furthermore, some students shared their excitement surrounding math and reading, informing us of programs like CKLA that target specific reading and writing skills. Throughout the school, Throughout the school, students look forward and are aware of privileges given to the third graders. The Safety Scout program, which we saw here tonight, is one of which is also present at Brookview Elementary School, where students get to participate in patrolling the kindergarten hallway to enforce rules and to ensure good behavior. There is also the student staff kickball game, which has been occurring for the past 7 years, which allows students to look forward to something and have playful banter, though despite the smack talk, students have never won. Lastly, every student has shared positive comments on the kind, welcoming, and fun behavior conveyed by the teachers in school on a day-to-day basis, with one third grader even going as far to say, "I don't want to leave," which we imagine really illustrates the environment that the environment of Seneca to the board. Considering this, we believe it is essential to recognize the hard work that Mrs. Spitz and the staff at Seneca put forward. Thank you, and with that, I conclude the Seneca report.
Big thank you to our student representatives, and this is actually the first time we've seen you this year. So, it's been a while since we've all been together, so very happy New Year to all of you. Hope you had a great break. You're all refreshed for the second stretch here as you move into the rest of the school year. As always, you are welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, but we also know that as students, you probably have a lot on your plate, so if you need to head out, you are more than welcome to as well. All right, the next item that we have on the agenda is approval of financial statements and treasurer's report. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the December 31st, 2024 financial statements and treasurer's report be accepted as presented.
I have a motion, please.
So moved.
Mr. Bay, and a second. Ms. Copeland? Dr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Anything to add?
Just the executive summaries are for the board. I usually try to point out anything that's kind of a little bit different that occurs. In this case, it was just once a year we get our annual refund from BOCES. It's basically, they aren't able to carry fund balance necessarily, although they do have a reserve action plan, but any monies in excess of that are returned to the districts proportionally based on your level of service tied to the various coasters we sign with it. So we received a refund payment of just over $500,000 from BOCES for the 23-24 services. Just want to point that out.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Brennan? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. All of those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item that we have on the agenda is personnel. Dr. Johnson? I'm sorry?
Resolution.
Yeah, I have the recommended resolution, please.
Be it resolved that the personnel agenda dated January 23rd, 2025, as recommended by the superintendent of schools, be approved as presented.
I have a motion, please. Ms. Bourneval, a second. Ms. Boyer? Dr. Johnson?
Thank you, sir. Dr. Farrell? You got it?
So for the agenda tonight, we have certified resignations, a teaching assistant, and a science teacher. Also, we have a retirement social studies teacher, 33 years and 9 months of service. And we have class 5 retirement, a cleaner with 17 years of service. Change in employment status is just a school location change for cleaner. We have appointments, a certified substitute and part-time teacher, under full-time substitute counselor and substitute teacher. Certified teaching assistant, part-time, we have 1 teaching assistant. At will per diem, 1 long-term substitute. Classified, we have 2 security workers, 1 cleaner, and we have 4 teachers approved for in-service and professional development work. And lastly, the recommendation for permanent civil service appointment, a maintenance mechanic 2, transportation director, food service helper, and grounds equipment operator.
Thank you, Dr. Phil. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item on the agenda is extracurricular stipends. May I have the recommended resolution?
Be it resolved that the extracurricular stipends dated January 23rd, 2025, as recommended by the superintendent of schools, be approved as presented.
May I have a motion, please? Ms. Bonneval, a second. Mr. Bay? Dr. Johnson?
Dr. Farrell, what can we add?
So in addition to changes highlighted in red from last meeting, if you go to, I believe it's the 5th page, you'll see one additional change in red.
Anybody have any questions for Dr. Phil? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. The next item that we have on the agenda is facilities. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Brennan.
Yeah, absolutely. I have just kind of an excerpt of our slide deck we used that night, just to kind of provide some highlights of what we discussed, for those the board's aware of that. So you can see our agenda. We talked about, we had our update on the RISE project, progress of the master plan. We had some discussions on capital reserves. And then we had a continued discussion on potential maintenance capital improvement projects, similar to what we did last May for the Brookview project. So we just hit on a couple of the pictures. You can see the progress being made through the RISE project. The one in the lower left, that's for the footers for the steel bridge that will be erected between Irondequoit High School and Dake. In the upper right-hand corner, you can see they continue demolition and some sanitary sewer installation. That's at Lakeview, which will be our future DOS building. And the third picture in the lower right, that's the demo works being completed of the HVAC over at Iroquois Middle School for the library that's undergoing there. So everything's on schedule with the RISE project. We get great updates from campus and CPL in terms of the progress, but everything is going very well. Capital reserve, we're going to talk a little bit more about this at hopefully at the board workshop, but we did talk about how we have philosophically used the capital reserves in the past, most recently with the RISE 2027 project, in order to do some really excellent work regarding capital improvements throughout the district, and we've been able to offset all the most recent projects that I can think of that local impact by using the capital reserve. So we've been able to put out these no tax levy increase projects, and it's been by the fact we've been able to really do a great job of planning for and using that capital reserve. Our current capital reserve is reaching its funding limit, which is what we discussed, and so we have some more information and analysis underway for that as well. Small project, this is an idea we're developing for consideration as a possible additional proposition in May, similar to what we did last year for Brookview. Remember Brookview, replacing the roof, a lot of the mechanics, the HVAC, the boiler, and domestic hot water, plus some associated masonry work. That was a $1.6 million project, so we're once again looking to tailor a project in the $1 to $2 million range. No tax impact by leveraging that capital reserve, and then making sure the project receives maximum building aid for the items there. And the idea, again, the concept we're trying to achieve is we're trying to target important maintenance items so that future projects, the larger projects, can really target programmatic improvements. So we're not always trying to fix items, we can also smooth out some of the spikes. One of the things we're dealing with is back in the 20 years ago, we rebuilt all of our elementary buildings. We did a lot of work, so a lot of that stuff is starting to age out. And so we're just trying to get ahead of it, so we don't have a large spike of having to replace it all at once. So here are just some of the rough concepts. We're still vetting them out, but these are some ideas that come through our maintenance department, working with our architects and construction managers, as well as some potential costs. So you can kind of see some ideas that are out there. We're looking at, again, similar maintenance, items, roofs, boilers, rooftop units, more roofs. We have a lot of buildings, a lot of roofs, so there's always going to be some roof work to be done somewhere. And so right now our charge is we're working together with our financial advisors to see about maximum cost allowances to make sure, again, that these building projects, we can maximize state aid. Looking at overall conditions of some of the items to develop a higher priority list. And then at our February meeting, we're going to coalesce and hopefully agree upon a potential project to bring to the board for consideration again for a possible meeting. I'd be glad to answer any questions about facility planning.
Just that last thing,
Yeah.
looking to bring a project to the board, that's in addition to that $1 to $2 million project we're planning?
This
Or
is
that-
the $1 to $2 million project.
Okay, that's,
Yep.
just for clarification.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
these are just some ideas. We obviously have to.
I wasn't sure if it was the $1 to $2 million project that we kind of plan to do on a regular basis and then another project. So thank you for clarifying. And again, I missed that meeting, I'm on the committee. It's been following on Mondays at another regular job commitment at that time. That I'm having a hard time moving. I'm trying.
The $1 to $2 million projects, these aren't like the capital outlay that need to be building specific, right? We can do
Correct.
multiple.
Yeah, so it provides us additional flexibility. We're not tied to a single building. And obviously, we're also not, the $1 to $2 million is our guidelines. We're the $100,000 project. That's it.
And we'll continue to advocate that $100,000 number changes.
James, do you have a time frame of when you'll be presenting your idea to the board?
Yeah, so the goal for February is for a project to be recommended by facilities planning. And then we'll bring it to the board in March for construction.
Great.
I think one thing I would add on this is that it's important that we build momentum on this and continue it as a annual part of our planning, because over time, as we're receiving the building aid back, that local portion will become less and less because the aid that we receive back will help to fund that. So very similar to the concept of the capital outlay exclusion process project, right, James?
Yeah,
Where once you invested the 20%, right? And
that's exactly right. We get the aid back, and this will take a little bit longer because it's spread over a longer period of time. But it's kind of self-seeds over time.
hopefully, yep.
Predictable
revenue. Any other questions for Mr. Brennan?
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on then, the next item that we have on the agenda is mid-year curriculum updates. Dr. Johnson.
Yeah, so we have some instructional rock stars in the house tonight. Before we introduce them, I'll turn over to this meeting here in a second. I just want to explain a couple of things that you have in there. So we had originally planned for there to be the customary mid-year management plan update. And as we were preparing for that, you may have noticed this last year, as we've gone through the years of our management plan, they've become more and more focused on curriculum instruction. Because there's some initial work and then some maintenance and some continuation of that. So we thought, why not combine the two presentations and updates to you? So you'll see that reflected tonight, the themes of the management plan as we go through curriculum instruction. I also included in there is a side document, it's the 24-25 management plan to-do list. It's kind of a breakdown of the tasks that we've committed to that were outlined in our annual management plan. So you'll see many of those reflected in what you hear tonight. Some of those outstanding pieces, you'll hear updates in different ways in the next few meetings. Okay? So with that, Ms. Miga?
And so as I kick us off, Kim and Orlando, if you want to join, so I'll take the first few slides, but just before we get going, obviously we have our directors of humanities and STEAM with us tonight, but this PowerPoint or slide deck, I think I should say, because kids have told me that when I say PowerPoint, it makes me cool. So it's a slide deck, everyone.
Handbook presentation.
Yes. Okay, so maybe that's just certain students that I talk to.
Not using an overhead projector.
Yeah. Rolling through. Okay, so anyways, but we are here tonight, but we represent the entire Office of Instruction team. So Kelly Santora, our Director of Data Assessment and Intervention, Amy Dunk and Joanna Rowe, our Directors of Student Services, and Phil Ortolani, our Director of Equity and Wellness, all contributed to this update since we all kind of work together to support curriculum instruction across the district. And so just want to again connect back, as Dr. Johnson shared, to our management plan. So it certainly, there was many, as you see on the to-do list, many items for us to engage in this year, and we're going to kind of pull some of those out as we go through the 4 pillars of our strategic plan. So curriculum, instruction, implementation system, and well-being of self and others, just so that we can make those connections towards some of this work that we're doing across the district, but how it's coming alive through our strategic plan as well. So we're going to start with our curriculum. And so one of our overarching pieces or tasks in our management plan is college and career readiness, ensuring that all of our graduates are prepared for post-secondary opportunities. And so, and aligned to that, a lot of the kind of subtasks of the management plan this year was to really continue to explore and expand what those opportunities are for students, certainly align ourselves to the portrait of the graduate, and then how are we using that towards some of our coursework and curriculum planning as we move through it. So we've already done a pretty extensive presentation to you as the Board of Ed around the portrait of the graduate work that we have done. And so just a reminder of that timeline, which includes, in the next couple of years, the financial literacy for all, as well as the climate education requirement. Then a little bit further down, the movement to one New York State diploma versus the local regents and regents with advanced designation. And then, kind of coming to full fruition in 2029, where there would also be one New York State transcript. And so all of that kind of being based in the portrait of the graduate work. So this movement or this transformation towards making sure that students have opportunities in high school that allow them to not only become college or university ready, but also explore and know a little bit about the different career opportunities that exist for them as well. So again, we've shared a lot of that with you, and what's to come with this work as we continue that is an audit of our coursework at upcoming cabinet and faculty meetings at the high school, using the portrait of the graduate as our basis for that audit. Continued curriculum development based on that audit and the planned pilot, which Kim will talk to a little bit tonight. And then communications to families and staff regarding what New York City is calling the New York Inspires transformations. So we have, obviously we've done some speaking at the board meetings. Before the December break, we put some information out to our staff. We're working on the next in the know to our families, kind of a similar communication just to start to build more awareness. And then as planned, we'll follow up with hopefully some events to have some more information as we get it from New York State as well, but events to help explain to our families and students. All right, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Orlando.
Thank you. All right, so starting with STEAM, the curriculum work continues. I know I've talked about this before, but we are still in the process of building our curriculum, or in a lot of cases just updating our curriculum 5 through 12 to better align with current New York State standards, with particular focus, especially in science, to ensuring that our students are as best prepared to the new type of assessment that our students are taking. I know that in a previous board meeting, Carol Stem took you through what those new assessments look like. So we're spending a good amount of time making sure our teachers are prepared and actually doing some authoring of their own clusters. We don't have a ton of resources from the state, but we have attended a significant amount of training, and we're providing that training to teachers, and they're really kind of digging their heels and doing a lot of that authoring and trying some of these out with students and getting a lot of data on what are some of the literacy practices that we need to get better at, and what are sort of the science practices that we need to get better at to make sure that our students are prepared for those. This project will extend eventually 3rd through 12th grade, because these assessments look like this at the 5th grade level, at the 8th grade level, and they will look like this at the high school regents level as well. One thing that I completely forgot to add here that's like in the STEAM side is also our efforts to modernize some of our tech courses, really ramping up our recruitment efforts, particularly for the engineering pathways that we historically have had like slightly lower numbers that we would like. We recently got approved for a $10,000 grant to modernize some of the equipment in our engineering classes that we're really excited about. So we can't wait to put that into motion. We already see a lot more interest reported from counselors to students who are going from our middle school to DDP to some of those engineering classes. So hoping for higher enrollment in those classes next year. So that was just a little side note. Additionally, curriculum work continues and actually intensified in art and music. I'm actually really impressed with how much these teams have coalesced around curriculum writing. These are teams that have historically, because there's so many different courses, getting these teams to kind of coalesce under a shared vision of curriculum for their courses has been, some work. And so really their focus has been just really getting modernized and aligned to the art and music standards. These standards are relatively new, and while we already have a pretty strong arts and music program, we really wanted to make sure that we weren't missing some of the changes that came with these standards, particularly in the culturally responsive approach to arts and music. Those are actually pretty well spelled out in these standards, which was not before. And so teachers are really digging into what does that look like translating into our arts and music courses. Another area that we're looking to explore is we're looking to potentially expand the use of iReady Classroom Mathematics, which was adopted now for K through 6. And so we've seen already some great sort of initial results in terms of student engagement, in terms of like students' understanding of mathematics and their interactions with each other and talking about mathematics in class. We've seen it have a great impact on teacher practice. And so we're looking at the possibility of increasing our alignment in our math program K through 8. So our 7th and 8th grade teachers are currently in a pilot mode for this curricular resource. And so hopefully we'll have more information for you on how that's gone and what the recommendation might be after the pilot.
All right. So in the humanities, over the last few years I've spoken a lot with you around our work at the K-6 level. I'm excited to say that I'm not going to be talking about that today. I'm going to be really focusing instead on our work that we've been engaging with at the 7-12 level. So, well before COVID, around 2017, New York State came out with the social studies framework, and we at that time engaged in work in reviewing our curriculum. Well, it's been a minute, and a lot has changed in the way that we see social studies instruction. We've gotten smarter around what culturally responsive instruction looks like within the social studies, and so we're really bringing all of that good learning into our curriculum revisions. So we've started those revisions at the 7th and 8th grade level through curriculum work, and we'll be continuing that work through the summer. And we started doing that work through 9th grade global history and geography through our engagement in the plan pilot, which I'll speak a little bit more about in a minute. In English language arts, last year I presented on the curriculum work we've done at grades 7 through 9. I'm excited to share that. I'll probably be speaking to you about 10 and 11 at the end of the year review for that curriculum work, because it's just about getting close to done. So we're very excited about that work and starting to see as teachers pilot those units in the classroom, and we're able to refine them before we bring it for final approval. In the world languages, we have engaged in curriculum work since the new standards came out a couple of years ago, the first time since the 90s. So first time since all of us took world language. We now have new standards. You guys too were under the 90s standards, so how about that? So one of the approaches that we decided to take as a department was, rather than writing curriculum for Spanish 2 and for French 2 and for Italian 2, Since they all have the same level 2 standards, and those standards inform the design of the proficiency exams, we decided to create curriculum maps for level 2, so that regardless of the language students are taking, the expectations are roughly similar. And then we're doing some additional work within the planning, like the instructional planning portion of curriculum, to align teachers within language teams. So one of the larger languages is Spanish. So for example, Spanish language level 2, we have multiple teachers. We'll be doing like a separate alignment work, whereas in French and Italian, it's only one level 2 teacher. So it doesn't really require that same kind of collaboration. So we're working our way through that, and it's really exciting work to see the teams come together and recognize what a level 2 language student can do, regardless of the language that they're in. To that end, our level 1 proficiency exam, which is a regional exam, we have representatives from our language department participating in the cohort run through BOCES to create that new assessment, and we are midway through that work, so that's ongoing and more to come on that. Okay, so the plan pilot. This stuff has been really exciting. Things have really ramped up with the work that the state has offered with regards to the plan pilot. It was a slow start, maybe saw a little bit, but we're now finally getting the kinds of resources and camaraderie that we're looking for as being part of this work. For example, I'm able to collaborate with directors of humanities in Long Island and in other areas, and who are doing similar work, and we're able to share resources and ideas and bring that to our teams, and it's really exciting to see all of that collaboration happening. Our teachers in Global 1 are just about wrapping up the unit that we revised and designed over the summer, Unit 2 on classic civilizations. What we did during that curriculum revision is we not only looked at our state standards for that unit and the culturally responsive and sustained framework, but we also kept our district draft of the Portrait of a Graduate out, similar to the way we do the standards, because we wanted to make sure as part of this work that the assessments and experiences we design are supporting students' progress towards these competencies. So students will be engaging in the performance test that's sort of summative to that unit, as well as a more traditional assessment, and we're going to be meeting in February to talk about some of that data and how it went, and begin planning our revision for our final unit, which we'll be implementing later in the school year, and designing a new performance or project-based assessment for that as well. So more to come, but it's exciting to see this work happening in the classroom. Okay, continuing along the theme of Portrait of a Graduate, we have 2 courses. One Ms. Miga brought to you, I believe, last month, Real World Communications. So thanks to your approval, we'll be starting that curriculum work next month. That course will really be based around providing students with opportunities to develop their communication skills when it comes to things like interviews, writing cover letters, resumes, email etiquette, all those kinds of things that are really essential for students who are entering the workforce, and we're excited to be able to offer that to them. And then in the coming weeks, we'll be bringing forward our proposal for career and financial management, financial literacy for all course. So we're really pumped about that as well. Okay. Another exciting piece of information, so our new humanities TOSA, Lindsay Porter, has completed her letters facilitator training, and next month we'll begin running our letters training in-house. For those of you unfamiliar with letters, it is the program that we've been using for training our teachers and staff in the science of reading practices to support our instructional practices for literacy. Up until this point, we have, because of COVID and just subs and whatever you could think of being limiting factors, we haven't been able to get everybody trained that we want. But now that we're in the place that we are in, we're excited that these cohorts of teachers listed right here, our goal is to have all of them trained in letters by the end of summer 2026. So already K-12 ENL has been trained. Most of our special ed teachers have gone through the training as well, but now we're really going to be focusing on our K-4 classroom teachers, and then this spring we're actually going to be doing a modified training to really support our 5-8 humanities, STEAM, and science teachers
in supporting their instruction for language comprehension and vocabulary development. So we're really excited about that, and are really interested to see how that's going to have an impact on the way teachers are implementing the curriculum that we've worked so hard to build. So more to come for sure.
So Kim and Orlando are really busy, so, but doing great work. And so as we move to our next component of our strategic plan and our management plan instruction, we wanted to take the time here to really showcase our focus in our strategic plan on creating and implementing a consistent, meaningful, and equitable standards-based grading system. And so this really pairs nicely, obviously, with the curriculum work that you just heard about, because you need to have solid curriculum and a guide and a path and a promise of what is being taught in order to focus on how you can kind of norm your grading practices and make those equitable. So that really had to be or come first, the work around curriculum, and we've been doing that over the past few years really intensively. So that's led us to this point to really dive a little bit more deeper into standards-based, but really we're calling or focusing on the equitable grading practices of standards-based grading. So I'll turn it back to Kim and Orlando.
We're busy. So, like Chrissy said, the major goal here is to make sure, if we want to make sure that the information that we provide to families and to students is accurate and represents a true picture of what the student's progress is in a course, regardless of what classroom they are in. So that's part of making sure that students have access to equitable curriculum and assessment practices. So since prior to COVID, even since before my time here, I know there was ongoing work to update the K4 report cards, and we're finally feeling like we're in a place where this might actually happen for real. And I didn't know what I was getting into, but so we're at a place where we can report some of the major changes that are potentially coming your way. At least one of these is happening right away, but we're starting with a shift to trimesters, so 3 report cards per year. There's a couple different reasons why that might be good. For example, giving teachers a little bit more time prior to that first report card to really gather enough information and evidence of a student's growth. We find that the way we have it right now might not be enough time, and it might better align with things like parent-teacher conferences. You're just able to provide a clearer picture of where a kid might be starting a little bit later. We've created, Kim led a subcommittee that created homework guidance documents for families and teachers to build a little bit more consistency and vertical alignment in our homework practices, and really just be a little bit more transparent as to what the purpose of homework is for families and how students might be supported at home with homework. We've also made some revisions to the scored indicators in the progress report that will better align to our standards-based curriculum in all of the content areas. We've also done some revisions of the academic performance levels, because that will actually allow us to paint a more accurate picture of the student's progress in that moment relative to their grade level. And the other thing that we've done is that will be sort of like a number structure. It's a little different than what we have right now. And then lastly, we're in the process of developing some guidelines for the narratives that teachers write in the comment section of the report card to create a little bit more consistency. Right now we have a pretty wide practice. Some teachers are very detailed, some teachers are a little bit more general. So we have a series of criteria for what should go in those comments, and we're going to create some sample narratives that teachers can base their comments off of, so that everybody's kind of doing the same thing. So if you got a student in one class and in another class, that they get the same information, or at least it means the same thing when you're looking at report cards from different teachers.
So since we did all that great work at K4, we didn't want 5-6 to feel left out, so we're going to work with them too. Really, if we're going to be bringing this standard-based, equitable-based grading practice at K4, it makes sense to extend those practices 5-12. So at the 5-6 level, we are going to be shifting to trimesters, right? 4-6 is the same building, so we felt like that made more sense for those two grade levels. But 5-6 do serve as that transition from an elementary, single classroom setting to eventually them becoming daycares. And so we're really looking to figure out with our teams what is the best approach to the grade book structure that they have at the 5-6 level that really walk that line between what it might feel like at the secondary level with actual numeric grades in a grade book, and making sure those grades are meaningful and aligned to the curriculum and providing consistency across teachers. So for example, if you have a student who's in 6th grade humanities with teacher A and a student in 6th grade humanities with teacher B, whether they're in Rogers or Iroquois, the number that they're getting in that course should mean something very similar. It should be reflective of similar assignments aligned to the curriculum. Assessments should be incorporated into grades in similar fashion, those kinds of things. And so we're just at the beginning of that work, but because of the sort of knowledge base of those teachers, being elementary teachers by training, they already have, bring to the table a pretty strong background in what equitable grading practices, standards-based grading practices really mean. So we feel pretty confident that our work this spring will allow us to make the refinements we need to make to implement hopefully next year, maybe. We're going to see how it goes. But we'll be starting with the conversation with the shared decision-making teams at both Iroquois and Rogers. Is that next week?
That's next week.
Cool.
We gotta prepare for that.
Totally ready. It's fine. And then with that, we're going to also start looking at 7-12. So 7-12 is a completely different ballgame, right? We have a large number of teachers with a wide variety of departments and disciplines and courses that students can take. And so we're in a much different starting point with our 7-12 teams than we are at 5-6. So we're going to be taking a much slower approach here. We are in the process of putting together a 7-12 steering committee that includes representatives from basically all of our departments, spanning DIC and the high school. And our goal will be to accomplish these three things. We're going to build capacity for applying with greater consistency the basic principles of equitable grading, meaning that, again, if a student has one teacher for global and their friend has another teacher for global, their grades don't mean completely different things. They should carry a similar meaning, and that meaning should be very transparent to the student beyond just a number. We're going to work to then, after we build that capacity, work to develop proposed guidelines for implementing a standardized set of equitable grading practices. So what does that look like at the team level or at the department level? And then finally, how do we bring that to staff? What might that approach look like? What might that time frame look like? What kind of professional learning do we think we need? And we were very purposeful in inviting members to this committee. Some members have been doing standards-based grading for years. It's just something that they've engaged with, their early adopters. Others don't know the first thing about standards-based grading and they're more traditional in their approach. And so we're excited to get everyone in the room together to really talk through some of this research and come to a meaningful consensus that's in the best interest of our students and promotes that alignment between grades and curriculum that Chrissy mentioned before. Sure.
For that, are you looking, for the high school, is the curriculum for at least more advanced classes specifically based on preparing students for the ACT or the PSAT or SAT?
That's a great question. So college preparatory exams are extracurricular in that they are not connected to our in-school curriculum or to any particular state standards. They're really meant to be just sort of an overall assessment of students' literacy and mathematics skills, or if you take subject tests, similar thing. So our curriculum is aligned to the state standards, and if we're talking about advanced coursework like APs or dual credit, then that curriculum either comes in conjunction with our district approach and either the college board for AP or whatever college we're partnering with for a dual enrollment class.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Glad you guys are here.
Thank you for
I mean,
asking
it's
questions.
one thing to present a report, but you guys are here too. It's really cool.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Yeah. All right. So as we continue that work, we wanted to also then focus and share a little bit on our implementation system. So we pulled from our management plan to share with you tonight our focus on faculty and staff supervision. I also want to thank Dr. Farrell, as she has helped to lead this work through our different leadership meetings as well. And so this focus and what we'll share is just our efforts to, similarly to standards-based grading, where you're norming the evaluation of student knowledge, we wanted to norm the evaluation of our faculty and staff. So again, that they also feel like it's an equitable environment, and that, just as Kim and Orlando said, you walk into different classrooms for the students that are receiving that kind of guaranteed and viable curriculum. We also, through the supervision process and through the implementation of our instructional model, want to be able to not only walk into the classrooms across like all the 6 K-3 buildings and see similar content, but also see similar instruction, and we can help to support that through our supervision. So the first example of this that I wanted to share was from our November K-12 leadership meeting, specifically the 2nd and 3rd learning target, where we engaged in training our leadership team members in problem solving, in our problem solving process, which they've all been engaging in quite a bit in their roles. But again, norming some of the systems that support that, and also some of the feedback that we can provide as evaluators, but also supervisors and collaborators with our staff. And then we also took some time during this meeting to take a look at our post-observation forms, especially as we have been transitioning to the use of eDoctrina to support supervision as well. So more specifically, to support the problem-solving process, we ran through a variety of scenarios where each of the different directors led different groups, where we would look at kind of like a mock template of student data or grade level data or a scenario, and run through how we as leaders could help to problem solve that. So again, building that consistency in those problem solving processes as well. So not only did we engage in the problem solving, but then also talking about why this approach, or what have we experienced that has worked better and more effectively. And then for our post-conference forms, we have been taking a look at just what do those look like now that we've transitioned to eDoctrina. It's the same form, but the process feels a little bit different. So we wanted to make sure as we have transitioned to that we are looking at each other's work and saying, okay, we're giving feedback based on this, where someone else might be giving feedback that looks a little bit different. So how do we find those common places that we all want to include in our post-observation forms and conversations with staff? So we looked at these essential questions. How much information is included in the lesson summary? What are the items, or how are the items of discussion structured? And in what ways would you characterize the next steps? So we really look at the next steps of a post-observation form, which is what the faculty or staff focuses on between that observation and the next. And we said, what do our next steps look like? Are they meaningful? Are they actionable? Are they targeted? So that it means something to the staff that is receiving this feedback. So we've been doing a lot to align ourselves. And another example of that was just, again, pulling something from one of our 712 leadership meetings, where we focused on creating a 712 instructional alignment tool. So we pulled goals from all of the different school-based plans from across 712, but obviously there's only 2, but each department also has specific goals within those school-based plans. And then we took some of the best practices aligned to our instructional model, and we created a document that we as supervisors all have, that we can take with us to observations, to discussions, when we're running a department meeting or having, meeting a particular team. So again, that staff is feeling like even though we're not all able to be together at the same time, that we are aligned and that we're all working towards the same goals and kind of visions as a district. So still work to come on that. We have a K-12 leadership meeting coming up next week, and so we'll just continue those practices and really trying to bring together our practices as a team. And our final area of the management plan, and obviously that we focus on with curriculum and instruction, is well-being of self and others. And so really wanted to focus and pull out those pieces where we're creating a welcome and inclusive community. And specifically, I'll share just a little bit of an update on some of the transitions between buildings. That's been an item in our strategic plan for the past couple of years. And with some of the transition from our assistant director to now our director of equity and wellness, you know, we've had some starts and stops with that. So I'll kind of describe where we're at now and where we'll go now that Phil is in place. And so again, this is our update from our entire student services team. But before I get to the transitions, which I'll talk about last, here are just some other general updates that, of course, that entire department is serving our students and fostering their well-being. So one of the things that we continue to do, and this was also from the student services analysis, was that we are training our special education teachers and related service providers on IEP goal writing. So this is something that started last year, and we've really heavily focused on through the entirety of department meetings this school year. They're also looking at tier 1, 2, and 3 assistive technology supports, and you know, with the end goal of really how do we use those to promote student access and independence. You've heard about this through different avenues, certainly through our study sessions, but you've seen that SEL data come to life at the building level and at department meetings and across all of the buildings. Our SES staff has really dug into this data to not only support the bigger picture, which you've seen through the study sessions, but also how can they use that data for individual and small group student support. So that has been a great tool for us. One of the things that I believe last year, Amy and Joanna came to speak to just in their general update, but we talked a lot about classification rates because we have started to see those, you know, trend upwards. And so they've released in the past couple months our 23-24 special education classification rates. We had a rate of 13%. And it was great because we finally got some comparative regional data along with that, and we did see that really all of the districts in the area are seeing that kind of uptick in their classification over the past few years. And only 3 of the 10 component districts have a classification rate under 13%. So while we are seeing that trend upwards, we're also not trending as one of the larger jumps compared to component districts. So that just tells us that we've got, you know, some strong processes in place. We're going to continue to support that, just as that's something we've been closely monitoring since, you know, pre-COVID, honestly, we really would always hold very steady at like 11 to 12%. And that was something actually pulled out in the student service analysis that was a strength of our district. So that's just something we'll continue to keep our eyes on. And finally, the transitional data, and this is referring to transitions across buildings, especially since we're unique in that we have a couple extra transitions that other districts might not have because of our building structures. And so last year through our assistant director role, a lot of that data was collected around like the what is currently happening. So that has been collected. We've created a document, and now with Phil Ortolani in place, he's kind of diving into that document now, and we'll continue to work on that through the remainder of the year. So we're excited to have him on board so that we can really dig into that particular area, which was something that really came through the strategic planning process as an area of need and consideration. So that is our curriculum and instruction update as it's tied to the management plan. So we're happy to take any questions or comments.
That is really great work.
Yeah. No questions, just some comments. First of all, I guess. Oh,
I just wanted to give everybody else a
go
chance.
ahead.
Can I start with Kim and Orlando? So, going back to the report card thing, you said, and I understand that first marking period can be very, settling in, boom, 10 weeks. Like, I understand that. You're at, so the transition to, I'll call trimesters, right? How many, do other districts do that are in our component districts? Is that normal?
It's actually the majority, and that has been a transition over time though. So I'd say like 15, 20 years ago, I think most had 4. But that was a question that we asked as we engaged in the work.
Great, so that's one question. So then to, I think Aaron, this kind of goes to you. So back a few years ago, we had, with the union, I think a memo, MOA, and then I don't know if it's been in the contract now, we gave extra release time to our K-4 teachers because of the report card requirements and the time, because they tended to be very, Chrissy, help me out. Intensive, write-in intensive, where not as, at the upper grades, there's some more of the comments that you can put in.
Right.
So how does that affect this new structure? We used to have 4, and now we're gonna have 3, and we're given some release time, which was calculated on 4.
Yeah.
And then how does that affect, like I understood how it worked before because there was 4 quarters, and it was 8 hours, I think it was a day it ended up being. How does that now affect out into a 3 trimester program? You don't have to answer that now, but
I think either Brenna or Chrissy can speak to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a report card stipend within the WIDA contract.
Yeah.
So, and will sunset at the end of this year, and it was in place because of the number of indicators that had to be taken into account. So I'm not sure about the number of indicators.
Yeah.
It's fewer.
It's fewer, and we've been working, we've really brought a lot of different teachers into this process so that we can also get their feedback as to how to actually make the report cards more efficient, not only for the teachers to complete them, but so that they will communicate better to our families what, where his child actually is. So we think that they'll be more streamlined. And then, for example, one of the shifts we're making is from one big kind of paragraph at the end. After each content area, there's going to be a place for more specific targeted feedback that will be shorter. And then, as Kim and Orlando spoke to it, we're working on exemplars and models of what that looks like so that the process can be more streamlined for teachers and actually giving more student-specific information without having to kind of write the paragraphs. Because we will say when we started this in 2018-19, and we've done follow-up surveys as well, so it's not just data from there, but families, parents, and guardians, they really liked the narrative though, because they felt like that's where they got the most information about their students. Although some of the feedback was also they've become very general. Some felt like it was a copy and paste of all the students kind of got the same. So we really feel like we're going to be able to still honor this specificity that parents liked through that, but also just doing it a little bit more streamlined way. So that's really what the bulk of the work has been.
And we're now helping folks kind of target their comments on specific content areas instead of sort of this larger narrative that could hit a content area or not. So we have specific guidelines. For right now, we're looking at potentially 2 to 4 sentences per content area with very specific things that they should be talking about. And if you talk about this, you got to include this. And so providing a really, really clear picture of what to do.
Okay, thank you for that information. And then, sorry, just give me 1 second. I don't remember what my second question. It'll come to me, but now it's limited to Aaron.
Yeah, you said well. You're fine.
Thank you.
Just a comment and a question. The consistency I think is amazing, and the fact that you have 2 parts of the district, and that if a child's in 4th grade on one part and 4th grade in another, that they're getting the same curriculum, they're getting the same hopefully strategies, and the same report card I think is amazing and a lot of hard work. So thank you for that. I think it's very powerful for our graduates. Going back to the report card, along with the standards-based grading, will there be an element on there for like behavior, study strategies?
So we've created, we did a lot of work looking at the indicators that existed previously, looking at our current curriculum and the standards that are being addressed by that curriculum, and identifying the SEL components aligned to the SEL benchmarks that might, and so at the K3 level, really, K2 level, the social studies standards and the SEL benchmarks have a tremendous amount of overlap because it's all about learning how to be in a community. So we did a lot of crosswalking between those two and identified what makes most sense as far as like an academic, standard in social studies versus a learning behavior that's more broadly applied across the day, and articulated those as such. And then we worked, we had some time with some K4 teachers, was that last week? No, 2 weeks ago. Where the teachers got a look at the draft of the indicators, we revised them, we really thought about the SEL curriculum that they're implementing and how we can use that, as well as the panorama survey at the 3-4 level to inform some of those indicators, and we're actually providing clarity as to what data teachers should be using to consider what evaluative score they're providing for each of the indicators, including the learning behaviors. So it's not, we're really trying to help teachers. Yes, of course, you're going to use that qualitative data that's going to be subjective, but it shouldn't only be subjective. It should also have an objectivity to it. So we're trying to strike that right balance.
And it'll help make it clear, like if you're a brand new
Yeah.
teacher in our district and you see these indicators that you now have to score, you want to know where the data for that indicator is going to come, even if it's a learning behavior. What are some of the places, scenarios where you might see a student exhibit those behaviors? So there'll be a learning behavior section in the report card, and they're slightly different based on grade level. Kindergarten, for example, there was a strong ask to carry over some of the things relating to just simple things like motor, skills and stuff like that. So some of that stuff will transfer over.
Okay. I like what you're calling it too, learning behaviors. That's great.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Just a couple comments. So primarily, it's awesome to see the district like on the leading edge of so much of this. We go to MCBSA meetings and talk about things like Portrait of Graduate and changes in New York State standards, and knowing that those have just come out, basically, but we've been talking about these for 2 or 3 years. So I really appreciate you guys leading the charge on this and putting us in a position where we're not reacting, but evolving. Remember about 2 years ago, we got a letter from DECA about implementing financial literacy. So it's great to see that come full circle and be able to be talking about that actually being implemented within our schools. So definitely a little bit going on for you guys, and I appreciate the in-depth update, but it really is great to see the leading position that you guys have taken on. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you very much for those updates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item that we have on the agenda is revised district core commitments. Dr. Johnson.
Sure.
Let me have the recommended resolution, please.
Be it resolved that the revised district core commitments be approved as presented.
May I have a motion? One of all, a second. Dr. Johnson. Dr. Johnson.
Sure. So this is a second read, and at the last meeting, we introduced these and had a great discussion around some of those. I took your feedback, went back and made some changes regarding some of the wording, adjusted some of the placement of the commitments and reordered some of those, and then added a little stronger tie commitment 7 to indicate like we work within a finite box, so we have to always consider what our community can support around some of our financial management. So with that, I will gladly entertain any questions, but I think we hit all of the high points from that discussion. So I'll offer it up to you.
Well, these are great, I'm excited to see them.
Yes, they're wonderful.
So, just a process question. Great work, Karen. Thanks for letting the board have which we own these too, but the process was great. I guess my one question I have we had time to say, post this on our website and ask for community feedback? Or would we do that again? In
It
something
wasn't
like-
part of the plan process, because it wasn't blowing them wide open.
Okay.
So we ran it through a, like I shared before, one of our committees, district-wide committees with shared voices across staff, administration, community. And I took it back, their input back to our leadership team and then brought it to you. So I guess it depends on how wide we want to open that. And I'm a little hesitant because I think they would need to understand the work that underpins that,
You answered the question. We've had what I'll consider staff and community feedback through the committee. And now that you said that, I remember you presenting that the first time when they came up and the process, so thank you for that again.
Yep.
I'm very happy with these. I think everybody's done a great job with the wording and changing them a little bit, and I like that we changed a little bit of the order. It makes a little more sense too, so.
Great recommendation.
That was kind of more of a process question.
Yep.
And you're right, this was more of a revision than, I'll say, we're looking for what we're gonna do, but
Right.
when we did the strategic plan and stuff, right?
Yep.
So, thank you for explaining that.
Yep.
Any questions or comments? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Next item on the agenda is bond resolution proposition 1. May I have the recommended resolution?
It can be found in board docs.
I have a motion, please. Ms. Copeland, second. Ms. Moore, Dr. Johnson.
Mr. Brennan, anything to add on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak to both of them. Essentially what this is, the board is authorizing the district to borrow monies in excess of what's being paid for by the capital reserve. So, for example, on bond resolution 2 for the turf fields, we're gonna be utilizing, $8 million of capital reserve money, and that the rest of it will be paid through building aid. But at the same time, we know building aid will come in over a period of 15 years. So we'll be engaging in some borrowing, and that borrowing will be offset by the building aid, but this authorizes us to go forth and secure those loans. And the district is essentially guaranteeing that we will be paying those loans back.
Anybody have any questions?
James, does this anticipated borrowing with the passage of these resolutions affect our bond rating at all? I know you work with Bernie Donovan's office.
Yeah, I mean, our bond rating, I mean, over time could change depending on the total amount of debt that we have, but we also have significant debt coming off the books, like our debt service is very small right now. So our bond rating should be very strong, should remain what it is. It's a double-edged sword.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item on the agenda is bond resolution proposition 2.
That can also be found in board docs.
May I have a motion, please? Ms. Bornabal, second. Ms. Board? Dr. Johnson?
No further comments?
I think just for people watching at home, since we didn't read the whole book and it's a long resolution, this is really just a continuation of the capital projects that were approved last May, so we can continue to move forward. So this is not new borrowing the board is engaging. This is borrowing that the residents has authorized us to work to do. And it's just, as we explained in the proposition votes of what, and this was all explained, James, you did a great job then. This is just the next, I'll say, lever in the project to keep it going.
Yeah, this is our promised 2027 project.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, Go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next item on the agenda is field trip request DECA. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the field trip request for DECA students to attend the DECA State Career Development Conference in Rochester, New York from March 5th to March 7th, 2025 be approved as presented.
Can I have a motion, please? Ms. Bornabal, second. Mr. Shuffle. Dr. Johnson.
Yep, so this is a customary field trip. It's for the state competition. It's one that, we're highly involved in the planning of that and facilitation. I know that I believe the board received a invitation. If you're interested in kind of behind the scenes look, it's always something that is really interesting to see that and to be able to interact with how the students compete. If you have any questions, happy to entertain those, but you have the breakdown of the some of the costs and how those are being handled. So,
I unfortunately will not be able to attend, but if there are any board members who can make time, it really is an incredible opportunity to go. It's amazing to see the scale and the scope of the competition. And if I remember correctly, I think Mr. Caesar is one of the coordinators of the entire visit guest process. So chance to support one of our own in that as well. All right, any other questions, comments? All right, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. The next item that, on the agenda that we have is consent agenda. May I have the recommended resolution, please?
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the West Irondequoit Central School District approves the consent agenda, which includes J2 through J3.
So moved.
Mr. Bay. Second, Ms. Boyle. So just real quick, to make more efficient use of meeting time, the Board of Education authorizes the use of the consent agenda. This allows one motion to approve multiple items, and items are identified as such within the agenda. I'll ask for a motion, which I just did, to approve the consent agenda and see if any board members wish to have any additional discussion or clarification on specific items. After the discussion, we can vote on the consent agenda motion. In addition, if a board member is able to request to have any specific item removed from the consent agenda, and then we can vote on that individually. So with all that being said, does anybody have any questions or comments on the items in the consent agenda, which include recommendations on the Committee of Special Education and a bid award for electric repair, maintenance, and installation services? Are there any items in the consent agenda that a board member would like to remove the consent from the consent agenda and vote on separately? Okay, then let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next items on the agenda start with our board liaison reports for the Monroe County School Boards Association. And the first report we have is Legislative Committee. And our representatives for the Legislative Committee are Ms. Copeland, Ms. Wall, and myself. Two real quick updates. So the Legislative Breakfast, which is one of the biggest events run by the Legislative Committee on an annual basis, is next Saturday from 8 to 12:30 at Shadow Lake. The registration deadline for that is tomorrow. So if you are interested in attending and haven't registered yet, please make sure you go in and get that closed out before tomorrow. And then second is the Monroe County School Boards Association advocacy trip. That is going to be Monday, March 3rd. It will be Amtrak travel to Albany, a fairly packed agenda meeting with legislators, members of the state SED. So a lot going on there. I believe the registration deadline for that is next Wednesday.
I think so.
So if that's something you're interested in, please take a look at your email and register for that. Anything I missed?
Nope, that's it. Know that you and I will be.
It's been pretty, it's been pretty busy and legislative as we get ready for the legislative breakfast. They did mention at the meeting 2 weeks ago that this looks like it may be one of the best attended legislative breakfasts from a legislative standpoint. So we should have lots of ears at the breakfast and look forward to that opportunity to advocate for issues that are near and dear to our hearts.
Speaking of the breakfast, am I recalling last year we had like a one-pager or a folder?
That's what I had mentioned preparing, that we're working on. Yeah, during my update, that's okay. We're working on that right now.
I think you were, I thought, I don't know what I thought. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
so that's, to connect the two because I'll
Yeah.
deliver that. I'll have it in a folder for you.
Right after the bus thing.
Yep. Yeah. That's a lot.
The next update on the agenda is just.
Can I ask, it's not so much legislative committee, but it's really to James and Aaron speaking towards the legislative, because I know the governor released her version of what she thinks the budget's gonna look like. Have you guys had any, and you know, sometimes you get those school runs, and any major changes? I don't need in-depth, is there any concerning things she said? I have not dug into it yet, so that's why I'm wondering.
It was more favorable than November, so we're breaking that apart and we'll be able to provide you some updates next week. And then we're pretty closely watching, what she's introduced around cell phones.
Okay, thank you. I know that was one thing, and then I didn't hear of any like major, you know what I mean, big shift things.
No.
So I wasn't most concerned, but I know you usually look at that quickly after it comes out. School board sends out like a anticipated run or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have school runs.
Yeah.
So nothing to worry about. I'm sure we'll get more next week. So.
Yeah, it's definitely, was more favorable than when we started in November.
Perfect.
So-
Thank you for doing. I just figured I meant to ask that during finance, but then
Yep.
I figured I'd wait to hear because it kind of ties into legislative.
Yep.
I did see that there were some portions of the Rockefeller report recommendations implemented.
Yeah.
They updated census data, so
Yeah.
it's no longer using 2005, it's now using 2020. And that they've updated some of the poverty level definitions. I
Yeah.
believe. So,
Yeah, that's what that was the reason for the more favorable runs.
Thank you.
Now,
Thanks, Aaron.
Yep.
I figured you would reach out if there was big worries. I skimmed it.
Yeah.
Okay, the next update is District Operations Committee. That's Mr. Vey and myself. That meeting was scheduled for yesterday, but since all district operations across the country, across the county were closed down yesterday, so was the district operations meeting. The next meeting is February 12th, and the agenda from yesterday will be carried forward to the February 12th meeting. The next update is Information Exchange Committee, and that is Ms. Borneval and myself. You don't need it? Okay. That was 2 weeks ago, and it was a fantastic meeting that Irondequoit played a very large role in presenting, so big thanks to Mr. DeCesar. The topic was on partnerships with the New York State Department of Labor and a teacher ambassador program that really is focused on identifying teachers within districts to help change the narrative around graduation success. So in other words, when you're reporting things like students, number of students in a graduating class moving on to higher education, that shouldn't just include colleges and universities, that should include trades and apprenticeships. And there's a teacher ambassador program that is a 4-week training, I believe, in summers, that is sponsored by the New York State Department of Labor. And the whole goal is to really help teachers kind of better tell that story, better be able to position opportunities to their students earlier in the process. I think that aligns somewhat with the career readiness conversations that we had during the curriculum update as well. And Mr. DeCesar is a teacher ambassador, and I think was one of the first in the county to work with the Department of Labor on this. this, so really has led the charge. There were 6 or 7 other individuals that presented from their districts or from BOCES as well. And then it's also interesting to see another Irondequoit resident, Ryan Trevis, who works for the New York State Department of Labor, has really spearheaded this program from the DOL standpoint. And Mr. Trevis is a Irondequoit graduate, is actively involved in our alumni association, the West Irondequoit Foundation. So some great Irondequoit representation there. And really was eye-opening in terms of the number of opportunities and apprenticeships and pathways that students can really begin to take advantage of earlier in their high school careers. They talked about a few with like Bausch and Lomb and Kodak, and but also there were 200 different internships, apprenticeships, and other opportunities via the Department of Labor that students could take advantage of. So it was really some really interesting information, and really, especially when they talked about there are, in the next 5 years, there's going to be 480,000 seniors retiring from their jobs, especially in the manufacturing sector. And there's only going to be about 200,000 students graduating. So there's a severe inequity in terms of the number of people retiring and the number of available employees moving up to take advantage of these positions. So New York State Department of Labor is a little worried about the state's ability to fill some of these critical roles. So they really want to focus on students taking advantage of those opportunities so that we can better build our workforce.
It was a wonderful recap.
And again, huge thanks to Mr. DeCesar.
Yeah, he did a great job.
He really led pretty much the entire meeting, and it was great to see such strong Irondequoit representation. All right, now we move on to school community groups, and our first update for school community groups is Helmer Nature Center, and that would be Ms. Bornewell and Mr. Schaffel.
We have a meeting coming up in a few weeks.
I couldn't find it in my calendar.
I know we scheduled it, I think, for the beginning of February, so it's coming up. So we don't have any updates since the last.
Oh, 26th.
Oh.
Next
Next
week.
week.
That maple sugar, coming up soon. And the pancake breakfast.
I know. That's exciting.
Aaron might be there cooking some pancakes.
We'll be there together.
All right, next item is PTSA, and that is Ms. Bornewell and Ms. Wall.
I had a conflict and was not able to attend this past meeting, and I'm not sure if Mrs. Wall was there. So I don't have an update for PTSA.
Okay. And we have West Irondequoit Foundation, and that's Ms. Borer and Mr. Day.
I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Boyd because I was not able to make the meeting due to.
Yeah.
That's okay. It was a short meeting. It was on January 13th. There weren't enough voting members to do much business. So they really talked about the Denny Freeze reception and what that's going to look like when they dedicate the gymnasium to him. So an exciting time, and got to talk about that a little bit. So.
One thing that from the last meeting that I did attend that I wanted to bring to the board because we haven't had meetings at that much. So the foundation has received a requestment, I'll say, of some funds that have been designated for staff development. So what it is to help, and Aaron, help me out here, it's to some of our, working with Aaron's office and the Office of Instruction, if there's because the way our budget works is you have to wait for the budget year in order to sign up for the event. And some of them are like now they're signing up for some of these summer things where, and James told me, we can't commit to it because the budget isn't passed for next year, right? Something like that. And so
It's kind of above and beyond.
yeah, it's above and beyond. So it's allowing some teachers to, working through Christy's office and to maybe go to I'll just say letters, we talked about that, you know what I mean? Something that they can extend out to, so there'll be some opportunities. It's kind of like a scholarship almost for our professional staff to follow. And it's also not just our professional staff, but even our, I'll say our teachers, assistants and stuff like that, if there was stuff. So a lot of good ideas, Aaron, around it, and it's in its infancy, but we're gonna be seeing it come pretty soon.
Yeah, there'll be an application process and all of that.
Yeah,
So it's exciting.
Kind of
And
exciting.
It's a very nice donation, and it's an ongoing donation
Yeah.
from a person.
yeah, driven by a retired teacher who shared some experiences about how professional learning, that conference that she went to really,
Change their learning.
yeah, sparked some evolutions in her practice and how she was able to turn that to others, and she just wants to create those opportunities for our staff.
Exciting. So that was an update we didn't share from December, so.
The next update we have is the Teacher Learning Center, and that is with Ms. Bohr and Ms. Wall.
We have not had a meeting. Our next meeting is January 30th, next week.
Then moving on to Health and Safety with Ms. Copeland and Mr. Schaffel.
We've also not had a meeting. Our next meeting is March 6th.
And then finally, we have Policy, and that is Ms. Copeland, Mr. Schaffel, and Ms. Wall.
Not at a meeting. February 4th is our next one.
Okay.
Well, we had a meeting.
Not since the last update, have
We
we?
finished the 4,000s. We finished the
Oh,
4,000s.
we did. You're right. We finished 4,000. We started on.
5,000.
You're right. I was thinking that was before the last
No.
update meeting, yeah.
It's
And we
been
actually,
a long January.
it has. We started on the 5,000. Well,
We
we started
did.
on it, and then I think we kind of,
We did one 5,000.
yeah, a short one. That's right, yes. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, no, we had a great meeting, great discussion. I really appreciate the opportunity to have such interesting and important conversations with the rest of the committee on this. I think we're doing, if I do say so myself, we're doing great work. So I'm looking forward to sharing it out as we go through it.
And our next meeting is February 4th.
So we have a block of policy also that we'll be bringing to you as a result of that.
Great.
Yeah, as we talked about prior.
All right, now moving on to board liaison reports for our schools. Ms. Wall is not here, so we will pass on Irondequoit High School, but typically our amazing student representatives do a pretty good job of stealing her thunder on that anyway.
I think we already had it.
That brings us to Dake Junior High. Just a real quick update, been pretty exciting since getting back from break. Lots going on with the end of the biking period. A lot of solo fests going on in Brighton over the course of the last week or so. And some nice days off, so even though students aren't far removed from break, they've enjoyed some extended unplanned time off as well as some additional planned time off as well. And next we have Rogers, and that is Ms. Laura.
I got a nice update from Mr. DiMartino. The Student Council united to create a student leadership opportunities during recess. They're called a recess leader, and they introduced these positions to assist and support their peers during this time. And they're working collaboratively with other students to have these leadership roles. The art program recently received a brand new display case, which they're very excited about, and it's going to be showcasing student work. It's located in our art and music hallway and has become a valuable addition to the school. And the recent chorus concert, students incorporated American Sign Language to support a student who is deaf. And it's been an incredible way to connect to the community. And through Mrs. Conti, all the students are connecting through this in the chorus program. So, great job.
Next we have Irondequoit, and that's Ms. Copeland.
I have an update from Mr. Zwallen. They're thrilled to have the library renovation project underway and grateful to students and staff for their adaptability as they're keeping the library program going in their makeshift space, which I appreciate we got to take a look at during our study session. And I do very much appreciate their adaptability. It's great to have that opportunity to do that. Also, the Winter Ski and Snow Sports Club started this month, and students are very excited about that. And the winter social and family night events, including a 4th grade bingo night, which is tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to attending a school-based planning team meeting on February 4th, where I guess I'll get to hear more about report cards, so.
February 4th is Sunday.
Okay. And then we have Briarwood and Colebrook, Mr. Shopford.
So on the 10th of January, Briarwood students had their talent show at the high school on the big stage. And also they had an art gallery. Students were able to submit their artistic creations to be exhibited. So it was a good night for all the different types of artists they have at the school there. And then tomorrow night at Colebrook is their annual family bingo night. So they're looking forward to that.
Great. Okay, Brookview Seneca with Ms. Boynwell.
So, Seneca, specifically, they have really been busy. As you see, they brought pretty much their report to us today, and we're able to demonstrate something they're very proud of. So again, showcasing their safety scouts. Brookview also does a safety scout program as well. And then speaking of Brookview, they're really excited about making some Valentine's Day cards that they'll be sending over to Golisano Children's Hospital. So the kids are excited about that. And then Seneca also noted that they were really excited to welcome the student reps and to talk with you and chat and fill you in. And they're really excited when outside folks come in and get chit-chatting with them. So yeah, we're going well.
Thank you. And then finally, Westwood and South Lawn, Mr. Vitt.
Just a quick update. So at South Lawn, they continue to work on their school spirit program and inclusive and staff student interactions. One thing that they worked on at South Lawn is with some of our new improvements and from our Director of Data and Assessment, being able to use some of our data to work on some chronic absentees and using parent engagement and student engagement. And I don't know what this is, so Chrissy, maybe you can help me. PBIS?
Positive behavior intervention.
Thank you. So they've started that with the students too, so that's part of, that was under the school spirit thing, so I wasn't sure what that stood for. So, and then at Listwood, they've done their assembly, school-wide assembly, and the first one was be safe, be respectful, and be responsible. They spent the whole semester working on that in common areas and focusing on rewarding positive behaviors rather than pushing the negatives. During the most recent assembly, they launched Listwood Essential 10, and it's a group of 10 specific behaviors connected to our school-wide expectations. For example, when you win, you don't brag, or when you lose, you don't get angry. Address peers and adults by name, congratulate classmates, and always be honest even if it's hard. So those are some examples of it, and they're just working it into different lessons, very well received by the students there. And then they're also going to be this week focusing on when giving something, a little treat or a gift or something, you say thank you. So our students practice thank you in English, sign language, and Mohawk.
Oh.
So a little something nice there. So again, we're seeing this, through as we see the presentations of curriculum instruction and stuff, and then hearing other reps, we've seen this vertical line that we see it. And it starts young and continues on up, so.
Right. Next on the agenda is future meetings. Ms. Lester, do we have any future meetings?
Yes, we have a workshop next Thursday, January 30th at 5:30 p.m. here at District Office. You guys will have a working dinner that evening. And then a K-3 study session Thursday, February 6th at 6 p.m., which will be at South Lawn.
And finally, we have an executive session. Ms. Lester, do we have any reason to adjourn into executive session?
We do, to discuss the negotiations of the West Irondequoit Teachers Association.
Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn to executive session?
So moved.
Mr. Van second. Oh, not even waiting. Ms. Motivall. I'm
No,
sorry, Ms.
four.
Moore.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried 6-0. We'll take a quick 5-minute break. Fixed up and cleaned up.
Are these from Makerspace
Yes.
kids at Jake, right? Yeah.
That's the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I knew what it was, but I was remembering.